Okay, mathematicians, here is our pink test. I'll call it the pink test with the highlighting. Let's go ahead and take a look at our first question. Remember, as you're doing this, you want to find your mistakes and make notes to yourself so that you can fix those before the test on Friday. Okay, notice in number 1, we have addition. Addition is our friend here because you know what that means? We can just get rid of all of our parentheses. That means I'm just going to rewrite this without all of the parentheses so I can see what I need to combine. Now remember, this y is the same thing as a 1y, so if it helps, write that in. And then I have -4. Now, when we put like terms together, they have to be exactly alike. Like the y has to have just an exponent of 1, just an exponent of 1, so then I can put them together. So I have a -4 and a positive 1y. Now, since this is -4 and this is positive 1, they are different signs. Different signs I'm going to subtract. So I have a -3y. I leave my y just as a y because I'm just adding and subtracting. I now look at my numbers that are just hanging out by themselves. I've got a +5 and a -4. Those, again, are different signs, so I am going to subtract. I'm left with a +1. And that is our first solution. Okay, let's take a look at number 2. Number 2, I should be seeing a big red sign here, stop sign. Look at that. There is a subtraction sign, which means there is some work that we need to do. This negative is not just subtracting 5x, it is subtracting 5x and it is subtracting a -4. So that negative sign has to be distributed to everything on the inside. Now, what happens is when I distribute that negative sign, my positive 5x flips to its opposite. So I have a -5x. And when I'm subtracting a -4, that means I'm actually adding 4. So my two terms flip to their opposites. Now, nice and neat over here, this technically is a positive on the outside, so I can just drop the parentheses, and I'm going to rewrite it just so it's not so messy. I think this would help some of you in this spot because I think this is where some people made some mistakes. So I notice once I go to combine like terms, I know these all have x's, but they have different exponents. This is an exponent of 1. This is an exponent of 1. We cannot combine them when they have different exponents on the variables. So that means that this 4x squared is just hanging out all by itself. There is nothing to combine it with. So we've got 4x squared. Okay, now we've got our x's to the exponent of 1. And so I have my x with an exponent. Notice that these do have the same variable with the same exponent, so now I can put them together. I have a -2 and a -5. Since they are the same sign, I now add and keep the sign. So -2 and -5 becomes a -7. And again, I keep the exponent just as it is because I'm just adding and subtracting. Then I have this number hanging out all by himself over here, +4. +4 stays +4. And there is my final answer. Okay, and now let's do number 3. Number 3 does look different because number 3 is multiplication. So when you have two sets of parentheses sitting next to each other with no operation, it is multiplication. That means I need to multiply everything by everything. Okay, not exactly, but close to it. So for me, it is easier just to draw the box. It helps me, our area model helps me to stay organized. And that is one of the key practices of a mathematician, stay organized. And so I know sometimes it seems like it takes a little bit of extra work, but if you can ensure that you get the right answer, then go ahead and do it. Okay, our first parentheses is 4m minus 3. So I have my 4m minus 3, 2 terms. This one has 2 terms as well, so 5m plus 1. Okay, now it's just like a multiplication chart. So 4 times 5 is 20. And this is an m times an m. So this time we do have to combine them. Since this is an m to the 1 and this is m to the 1, I now have 2 m's. Okay, next box. I notice I have a -3 and a +5. That is -15. No M here, but there is an M, so I'm going to bring in the 1M. Third box, I've got a 4 times a 1. And then notice again, I have 1M, so I'm going to leave the 1M. And my last box is -3 times a 1, so I have -3. So my multiplication is done. I have done all the work to multiply. And now I have to rewrite my answer. But when I rewrite my answer, I do need to combine like terms, just like I combined like terms up there. I need to look for terms that look the same. Since this is m squared, it stays. This is an m to the first power. This is also has an m to the first power. So when I rewrite my final answer, I am going to put those two together. So m squared is my largest power, so 20m squared. I have a -15 and a +4. Since they are different signs, I'm going to subtract. I get a -11m. And since I'm adding, subtracting, my m just stays m. And then finally, I have my -3. And that is my final answer. Okay, in number 4, we do have a fraction bar here. That means two things to us. First of all, this is division. And second of all, I cannot work with the top numbers, the numerator, until I remove the fraction bar. The fraction bar is actually a grouping symbol. So in order to do that, the easiest way is to rewrite it using 3x as your denominator for all 3 terms. It just makes it easier to look at. So I'm going to take my 15x cubed and rewrite it with the 3x. It's kind of like distributive property for division. I have to share this 3x with every term in the numerator. Now I can keep my subtraction sign. And then I have my 6x squared divided by 3x. And then I have my 3x divided by 3x. That's looking suspicious to me. I think that means something important. But let's go ahead and take a look at what's going on here. Now remember, when we are dividing, we leave our coefficients to do the regular division. I mean, they just get to follow the rules. Now our variables will do something different because they do have exponents, and so we do need to follow exponent rules for those. Okay, so 15 divided by 3 is 5. X to the third divided by x to the first. Remember, we keep the base and we subtract the exponents. 3 minus 1 is 2. So essentially, I'm taking away 1x from each of these. Now subtract. 6 divided by 3 is 2. Again, I'm subtracting 1x, so x squared becomes just x. Then when I get here, I notice this looks like a big, huge 1. Notice that 3x is being divided by 3x. 3x is being divided by itself. It is technically a 1, so that means I only write a 1. Do not keep the x, because remember, x over x is still a 1. I know that is a hard concept to think of, but we've talked about it. Make sure you remember this entire piece just becomes a 1. And that is my final answer. Okay, number 5. Okay, number 5, again, I've got this fraction bar. I've got to do some rewriting, or at least tweak my thinking. So when I do my division, I remember that this x is the denominator for all 3 terms. So it's easier for me to write it out so I can see it. I also think it looks pretty cool when you're all done because it looks like you did a lot of math work, because you did. So let's go ahead and write this. 7x to the 4th divided by x. Remember, this denominator is being distributed to every term in the numerator. I keep my positive sign. 3x cubed divided by x. And 2x divided by x. Now, the thing that I notice here, notice that my coefficients in the denominator are all 1. So essentially, my numerator stays the same because anytime you divide something by 1, it stays the same. So I don't really need to worry about my coefficients. What I do need to recognize is that all of my variables with exponents, I'm essentially taking away 1x every time. So my 7 divided by 7 stays 7. I have a 4, take away a 1. It's 7x cubed. Keep my sign. 3. I have x cubed, take away a 1, x is x squared. Then in this one, make sure we do this one slowly. 2 divided by 1 is still 2. But notice that this x divided by x, we just talked about it over here. X divided by an x is still a 1. So that means I'm essentially doing times 1, which 2 times 1 is still 2. So I just don't write it. And that is my final answer. Okay, make sure you go back and watch this again if you need to find your mistakes or just study for the test on Friday.